Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 30. And everyone knows I do like round numbers. So, very happy to have again Jillian with me today. And today we're going to talk about maximizing productivity and how that could, how that looks for us, and what can we do to maximize what we are doing to be more productive. So, Jillian,
Yes.
I know you
Yes.
love productivity.
Yeah. So I think of it as like scheduling for productivity and also accountability. Because for me, those three things go together. So if I want to be productive, I have to, a lot of things go into that. It's not just, oh, I'm going to be productive. Great. What am I going to do? I don't want to just be busy. I want to be actually productive. So
That's a good
uh,
differentiation.
Yeah, so I kind of fold those three pieces together, the accountability piece and the scheduling piece. So that's kind of how I think about it. How
But
do you think about productivity?
well, I will separate myself before being an entrepreneur. Actually, me a couple of years ago versus me now. And it's very in line with what you said. It's we tend to confuse being busy with being productive, and
Mm-hmm,
that's a big difference. So the longer your to-do list, the more things you do, you're more productive. And I kind of understand that. And that was my mentality. Like, I just need to do more and more and more and more because that's the society we live in. This is where culture, like we kept on discussing about these things, the more busy you are, that means you're successful and you're productive and you're creating
mm-hmm,
things. However, the older I get, the wiser I get. I prefer to think wiser than older. You realize that being busy is actually not necessarily productive. And we do have the 2080 rule as well that states the same thing. So a lot of the tasks that we are doing, they are actually not really needed, or you can do them better or optimize or delegate. And then you
mm-hmm,
can put your time in something. Sometimes actually not doing anything could be much more productive for your company than being super busy with, I don't know, emails and whatever, because that time will allow you to rest your brain and come up with the right solution for your clients, especially if
mm-hmm,
there's a creative solution that we both are very busy with that, right? Our
mm-hmm,
marketing and also business involves a lot of creativity. And if
mm-hmm,
your mind is busy, that's impossible to be creative, at least for me. So I will
mm-hmm,
probably be able to come up with something, but I know the value of that idea is 20% of what it will be if I had a good night's sleep, for example, or
mm-hmm,
if I go for
mm-hmm,
a walk and get inspired. So I think I always, funny, I had a meeting with a client 2 days ago about some articles that he wrote and a specific topic. And I was like, how about we start? I always start by defining the terms, because what I understand by productivity and efficiency and what somebody else understands is different. So maybe we could, what does productivity mean for you?
mm-hmm. It's funny listening to you because it reminds me of the kind of the pattern. I think a lot of us can get into a pattern of doing the things that we always do
Mhm.
because these are the things we always do.
Exactly.
Uh, so I was in that kind of flow for I don't know how long, probably too long. But so one thing did happen for me that really helped to shine a light on this issue of time and productivity and accountability, etc. When I went on maternity leave, I expected that to be, I had planned on that to be 4 weeks, and it ended up being 11 weeks. So coming back to work and talking with my team and clients after an 11-week departure and finding that things had continued to run in my absence was on the one hand like a relief and really exciting, but it also made me feel like, wow, what have I been spending my time on all of these years?
Mm.
So it really was a big shift for me to begin to explore and really start to think about how I spend my time. So fast forward from there, I think one of the things I actually had to do to shift gears on that and to think about it differently is to be far more proactive and kind of go back to the drawing board, so to speak, and really first identify what are the tasks that need to be done? What are the objectives, the business goals? Like, what are the things that need to get done? And then starting to, apply a layer of data and a layer of honesty, like truth to that, right? So the data piece is looking at, certain things that have to get done. How long do they take? Not the arbitrary number or amount of time I just put in my calendar or just, guess, but how long do things actually take to happen for myself and for my team? So knowing the actual time, like time ranges or what have you, is really helpful. And the second thing in terms of the honesty part is, I think it's easy for, I'll just say, a lot of us to get into kind of a habit of doing things like activities that we will say are like business building, or we're working on our business, but we're sharpening our pencils. Really, it's a lot, it's an abundance, or like an inordinate amount of time spent on supportive tasks that aren't really ultimately moving the needle.
I love that. And actually, I'm sorry to interrupt, but what I want, give examples, because I realize we keep on talking about this. And for the listeners that can say, okay, I understand, but what exactly is that? And I know from my experience, because I heard that before when I was busy, not productive, but I really wasn't able to properly make the difference between them. So how about we give some example?
Yeah, for me, I can look at, share some specific things. So I think two categories of things that were the junk drawers of time.
Oh,
Right?
I love that.
We all have a junk drawer. So two categories for me. One is learning things. So that's like reading articles or listening to podcasts or attending webinars or things like that to learn. Because for me, I have this never ending cycle, this dog chasing the tail routine. Like, I just learn a little bit more, learn some more, and that will help me. I can apply those to my business, which is true, but it's not realistic. It's not sustainable. It's not like a good sound business, strategy, in my opinion, to spend too much time on that every week. So now I have like a time budget. It's generally 2 hours a week for me that I spend. Granted, some weeks it's more if there is a conference or something, but generally it is 2 hours a week that I spend. And then to go off the deep end for a second, I will also, as I come across articles or podcasts or things, over the week, I will then drop those links into those schedule blocks. So when it comes time for me to like learn, or, I just call it learn, then I have the articles all teed up. So then I go and I read those articles and I do what I do. So that is one kind of bucket that was a major time suck for me. So I have converted that. Now I've got a structured amount of time and a process to know what I'm going to be learning or reading about at that time. That's one. The second is networking and building relationships with people. And that's probably a more difficult one for me because I love connecting with people. I'm really wired that way. It's my default to connect with people and to always look for opportunities to help them out, or, connect the dots and connect resources, etc. But I can't spend too much time doing that, right? So I've also looked into the different categories of networking. Is it actually business development oriented? Is it like a meet and greet? Is it a catch up? So I have very specific categories. So I did a lot of like a nice deep dive in the data to look at what are the types of meetings and conversations that I've been having, and how could I create kind of subcategories for those, and then prioritizing accordingly. So now I know how much time to spend on each kind of category of networking. And I also take it one step further, which is the reason I connect this all to scheduling again, is I have specific calendar links for certain groups of people.
You mentioned that before. I think we have
yes. Yeah. So
in another episode.
Yeah, just with varying availability. So therefore it's certain, if it's a meet and greet, there's only so many available if it's the same thing across all those categories. So that's a really important piece for me to delineate. Yeah, so that's my answer. So you asked for some specifics, so hopefully that's specific enough.
Yeah, and I'm actually happy I asked and understood, because for me they're slightly different. I never really put the learning part necessarily in my business schedule. So I see that, for example, podcast, I listen to that before going to bed, or, like I'm allocating half an hour, 1 hour, and that's when I listen to them. And I don't really consider them as learning, even if, yes, it's learning, actually. um, the webinars, yes, those you can't really move. So if they are during the time, that the working time, yes, they will be part of that. But for me, what I changed is the amount of time I'm spending in meetings, prioritizing the type of meetings, pretty much what you're doing, not necessarily having different ones, because I know our brains are different. So I know that works perfectly for you. For me, starting and arranging all of that, I'm adding a complexity that for me that makes my life not being productive. For example, I'm spending too much time creating that. I prefer, like, I'm having 30 minutes call and that's it. And those 30 minutes can be shorter or longer. And for like really working with my team, there will be 45 minutes. But the moment I switch from 1 hour to 45 minutes or even shorter, you know what happened? It wasn't that we couldn't solve things. Actually, we became much more efficient.
Yes.
Because you don't
Yes.
need 1 hour. And that doesn't mean we didn't do a check-in, or I don't know what is happening with my team. But we were like more to the point, and we became more respectful, I think, of the time. And another thing that actually I changed for me was I realized I was spending a lot of time. For me, it still is very important to react quickly to my clients, but that how you define quickly actually again is different. For me was the email came, I need to answer immediately. But if you're in a creative mode then, and you're doing something, that means you're breaking from that cycle, you're responding, and it takes you longer to get back into the rhythm of creating whatever you're creating, right? But the moment that I know I'm gonna answer all the emails in bulk, and I'm gonna do that whenever I feel like, either morning or evening or lunchtime, depending on also how I feel, that changed a lot. Something else that I'm actually doing now more and more is listening to my body, even if, like, I do agree with what you said. I'm always starting my day with a to-do list. So these are the important things that need to be done today, and they're non-negotiable. So this needs to happen today because of deadlines, whatever, right? And I'm very realistic with the amount of time. I always tend to add maybe a little bit, like 5-10 minutes extra, just to have that buffer in case something goes wrong, because something goes wrong. But what I don't do, I'm not saying that needs to be solved in the morning or in the evening, because I tend to listen to my body. Maybe I had a bad night's sleep, so I'm slower in the morning. So it'll be better for me to answer emails in the morning than being creative. Or if I had a very good night's sleep and I feel very creative, I went with my dog for a walk and just feel full of energy because like today is sunny, then it's better for me to actually stay and do something creative in the morning, because that will be my energy. And by switching that, actually, that helped me being more productive. So inserts flexibility in a tight schedule, if I can call it like that.
So what that reminds me of is how I think of it as kind of, proactive scheduling, which maybe sounds like the opposite of flexibility in scheduling. I'm not sure, but it made me think of that because so one of the things you mentioned is like emails and whatnot. And I think that's a trap for a lot of us to just get into, like, to lose our train of thought or lose the thing, like lose that thread because we respond to an email and then we respond to another email. And next thing you know, we're in the rabbit hole and all these things, and an hour has gone by. It's like, oh, and then you lost your train of thought. So I've also been guilty of that, which is why I know about the rabbit hole. So what I did for that is also to proactively schedule again the different tasks that need to happen within my business, and also just work style wise. So I also schedule specific time for administrative things, which sometimes that's replying to emails and things like that. So I have times that I also will do that. So I can go in and do all the emails, take care of all that, and then move on. So I'm not just doing onesie twosies here and there and feeling scattered. So that the other thing that I also do, which sounds similar to yourself, is I realized, like, thinking about, my work style and managing kind of the time, the priorities, and then the energy. So I know myself, I have my kind of peak energy and creativity in the morning. So therefore I set up my schedule to do that type of work at the beginning of the day.
Mhm.
So that's something that I've learned to work towards, or to proactively build into my schedule. And then another thing I do to kind of be proactive with scheduling is, like, we had kind of mentioned this, but having certain days that are for meetings and certain days that are off limits for meetings, that are my thinking days, like where I have longer chunks of time to get fully immersed in certain projects. So I don't, because for me, I need to make sure that I'm allocating the proper amount of time for all the things that need to get done.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to kind of manage the energy, and the time available. And the same thing goes for larger projects that I'm working on. Is I look at the smaller pieces, or the approximate amount of time, or what the deadline is, or something, whatever the metrics are, and then proactively schedule those blocks in my calendar, every week or however long it is, so that it's already there. And then I build everything else around those priority things. So that's why for me, so much of productivity requires kind of personal accountability, and for me, proactive scheduling.
I like that. And it's the accountability is a very important part as well. And there's personal accountability that for me
Mm-hmm.
that is done by my to-do list and what I have to do. And if I cross them, if everything is crossed at the end of the day, I feel happy. If something is not, I'm trying to be kind with myself and understand, like, why didn't it happen? Or maybe half of it happened, or maybe, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe what really helped me, especially, and that will be an advice for the younger entrepreneurs, or the not younger in terms of newer entrepreneurs.
Yes.
What really helped me at the beginning was having an accountability partner, like
Mm.
someone else. And I did that several years, actually, including during the pandemic. Just meet once a week, and can be very simple, as state what I need to achieve this week. And the fact that you have to meet with that person or a group of person, I did it also one-on-one, but also in a group, and you need to say, I did it or not. That kind of, it's, I don't know if it's the shame, responsibility. I don't know exactly what feeling you are, but you're like, no, I took a commitment. I made a commitment towards that group that I'm gonna finish this
Mm-hmm.
ABCD.
Mm-hmm.
So that really helped, because let's be honest, it's I think productivity and this part of our brain, to train it is a muscle, right? You need to
Mm-hmm.
train, you need to create these habits of working. And exactly like going to the gym. I know once that I get into the rhythm, it becomes addictive, basically. I need to do it. My body tells me, no, 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 this time of the day, we need
Mm-hmm.
to work out, because this is what we are used to. And the brain works the same, right? So your neural pathways are created in such a way, you create them that like, okay, this is my creative time, this is my meeting time, this is my learning time, so on and so forward. So once that you do that, it becomes easier. However, the moment you have a break, or at the beginning when you're just starting and you're still navigating
Mm-hmm.
and learning, like, what actually works for me, it's harder. So accountability is a very great way to learn and train you, basically, how to do that,
Mm-hmm.
because it does require discipline. It does require a lot of discipline.
Absolutely. I like that you said that it's like a muscle. And the analogy with going to the gym, that's absolutely the case. I can identify with that. For me, the gym thing is about 30 days. So those first
Yeah.
30 days are like painful. It's just, and then my goal in each of those days is just to simply get there. And so
Survive it.
kind of, yeah, just actually getting there. It feels like success. I made it there. I like that. So the accountability side here with respect to kind of productivity and scheduling. So one thing that I have implemented over the last maybe 6 months or yeah, I don't know, 6 months-ish, is I'm using a tool called Toggl. And that is really helpful. It integrates with my Google Calendar and it allows me to get kind of reporting data about how much, how much time I'm spending on certain things. So I can actually see my time spent. And it's helpful week over week and then over a period of time to be able to compare because it's so much. I'm constantly trying to strike that balance of being like maximizing my productivity. So doing more with less time,
Mhm.
and therefore being able to spend time doing other things that I enjoy, etc. So I'm really quite hyper borderline obsessively focused on scheduling because for me, so much of what I can accomplish and how I feel about what I'm doing, et cetera, are all tied to my calendar. And so taking the reins on that and being proactive is a really helpful way to tackle these things, in my opinion. The other thing that I do for accountability is using another tool, automations. So
Yes.
I set up automated reminders prior to meetings and also prior to events and after them. So prior to would be things to help me prepare, like a reminder I have such and such meeting or event coming up in a week, or this kind of thing, so that I'm prepared for it ahead of time. And the same thing for a meeting. So I like sidebar, like every meeting I have, I prepare an agenda for to help me, get my thoughts together so that I can be efficient. And so I have an organic conversation, but I don't want to, talk for 45 minutes and then at the end realize, oh, I forgot to ask you about this, or 3 weeks later, oh. So I'm trying to be very kind of structured and organized with that. But also for events, the same thing. So the preparation, and then on the backside, same thing. So oftentimes, depending on what it is, it's either a day later and or often 1 week, 3 weeks, and 6 weeks out. The reminders, because of certain things, did I follow up with? Did I create that content? Did I publish that content? Did I reach back out to those people? Whatever it is. So I use technology and automation to help me make sure that I'm like reminding me to make sure that I've done the things I need to do.
I like that. And I want to come back to the, for example, the tool that you're organizing, the Toggl, to actually see how long everything takes.
Yeah.
I think that's very important, especially when you start your business, middle and more advanced, because you want to, you want to see progress. You want to see, if I used to spend 3 hours on a specific idea. Actually, we need to make a differentiation between creation, where it can actually take longer depending on the projects. But administrative tasks, for example, if it used to take me 3 hours, the longer you make them, they should be shortened, or you can automate different things, and you can externalize something, so you can allocate that time to something that is actually productive to you, and that can be, as I said, even a walk to get inspired. So I love the fact that you are monitoring how long does it take you, and if you're able to shorten that period, and
Yes.
how can you improve basically the process?
Yes,
Sounds very,
exactly. Yeah.
very sterile, but more or less
No,
that's the thing.
it is. I'm constantly trying to improve what I'm doing, how I do it, the result, all of those things. So I prefer to reference data for almost any decision I make, pretty much.
Well,
So,
I must say I'm going a lot with intuition. So not necessarily I do follow data, but some things I will be very impulsive or gut feeling. But in terms of that, I do like to follow, okay, how can you allocate time for specific tasks if you don't know how long they took you before?
exactly.
So there
Exactly.
are a couple of things that you really need to be realistic. And of course, there will be oh, I need inspiration for this X or Y project, that's different because then it's harder. You can make an estimate, but that can take a day or whatever. So that's harder to estimate because you can't really speed up creativity. However, when you have something like doing your taxes or I don't know, just looking at numbers and doing reports, that's quite straightforward, right? The process, the steps, so it shouldn't take you that much time.
Yeah.
Or more than it used to.
So I have two last like short little kind of, I guess, tips or
I was
suggestions or
about to
things.
ask you about those.
Yeah, just two last ones. So one of them is, which you already kind of mentioned, and I think it's really important, so I'm going to call it out again because I also do it, is using like padding around my meetings. So I try to usually schedule like a 15-minute padding in between meetings.
Yeah, I
And
think it's very
therefore
important.
try to avoid back to back to backs, because if one person or one meeting runs over, then there's this, this kind of domino effect that happens. Or sometimes if you've had, if you're,
Too much
like
coffee?
too much coffee or drinking your teas, and then all of a sudden, like midway through your second or third meeting, it's like your eyes are floating. It's not fun.
No. And
So also
let's
trying
be
to
honest,
build
you'll not
padding
be
in.
able to focus on the meeting.
For sure, for sure. So I think that's a simple one. Again, I use technology for that to build padding in. Actually, I have a great mentor. He talks about the 55-minute hour, which I love. So when he and I meet, we have 55-minute meetings. So we talk about
Mm,
that, the 55-minute hour. So that's a hat tip to flip.
I like
And
that.
the last one I have is something that I've done over a number of years. It's become less relevant to me of late, but I still, anyway, it's about grouping physical meetings together. So I
Yes.
did this like I did this like quite professionally for a number of years. And then of course during the pandemic and all these things, it's changed a bit now. Now I'm trying to get out more to physical meetings. It's because it's become so comfortable and efficient to do, virtual meetings. But in any case, this idea, so what I always did, and I'm beginning to do again now, is figuring out certain, cities or regions or neighborhoods, where whatever your situation is, that I was going to meet somebody. And then I would look at all the people in that area using my CRM to see the other people in that area that I might want to reconnect with, that it's time to reconnect, and or that might be a nice introduction to that person that I'm already scheduling to meet with. So I can try to meet like back-to-back meetings or a coffee group meeting or something like that, so that it's more efficient than schlepping back and forth. Because I don't
You're
know if
wasting
this
time
is ever,
traveling.
or you ever, I feel like having that first time you drive somewhere 2 hours and then they cancel on the way or something. It's like, don't do that again.
It
So
will
I learned,
always happen.
yeah,
Like
yep.
not like at least once or twice it will happen. So and you can do
So I
anything.
learned I would always stack it so that no matter what, I was covered, so that the
No.
time spent, the energy, the gas or whatever it was to get to where I was going to be put to use, because I would have kind of backup, so contingency plan. So those are my last tips about proactive scheduling for maximizing productivity and accountability.
I like them and they're very in line with mine. What I'm also doing, also for the online. So I do apply what you're applying. I actually give myself not 5 minutes, but 15 minutes between meetings. My goal will be half an hour, but it doesn't always work depending on the schedule. So that's what I'm doing different for that one. And what I'm also doing, combining walking meetings. For example, I have a dog, right? So I do need to walk my dog 3 times a day. It's a very energetic dog. So today will be a perfect example. I'm going to meet someone while walking the dog and will be fun, will be great for building relationship that it's already existing, but also catching up and discussing what we want to do. So
Mhm.
of course you can't meet everyone for a walk with your dog, but you can actually see what are the connections. And the stacking of meetings, I keep on doing it also now and also for the online. And how I apply that is, for example, I don't have meetings, I have client meetings in the morning, for example, that I will accept, but none of the new meetings or prospects or get to know each other, or that the other category will happen in the morning. All of those I have fixed periods of time in which they can book, and just to keep it okay. So I know I'm not that efficient, like my brain is working, I'm good, but I will not be creative between those hours. So that will be a perfect time to meet these people and be curious about them, instead of just feeling like I could have done something else. Because let's be honest, sometimes you just meet someone, I just want to be out of this meeting because it's a waste of my time. We all have that. And then I will not feel frustrated about it, or I will actually be able to be there because, yeah, I'm not wasting time. I think that will be a nice end of this productivity, efficiency,
Yes. Don't waste
maximizing.
time. Don't waste time. That was the closing tip.
Yes,
Yes.
maybe that
Yes.
should be our title. How
Yes.
how not to waste time.
Yes. Yes. Alrighty, so that's a wrap on episode 30. Thanks for listening.
But before we go, don't forget about our surprise for our listeners.
You are right. Oh, look at me. Shame on me. Have at it.
So probably you already heard in the previous episodes, but we do love collaborations. I think that's the the core of our podcast. So this is why we decided to invite several of you, the listeners, to join us here in our podcast and basically use our brains. So do you have a question? Do you have something that is not really working in your business, or just you want an audit, or you want to change something? We have a lovely form that is, you can find it in the script, and where else? Everywhere, actually. We're gonna paste the link everywhere, and just book a meeting with us, and let's discuss how can you better optimize your business by use our brains.
Yes.
Anything
There'll
else?
be a link in the show notes for the application.
Thank you all for listening, and till next time.
Cheers.